Hello, everybody. You know that intro goes on longer every time. I think it's going to end and it just keeps going.
It
But
just
I
keeps
love it.
going and going and
Keep
going.
going like the Energizer Bunny, right?
Hmm
You know what's sad is I don't know. Do they still do Energizer Bunny commercials?
No, I think they freaking
I don't.
excommunicado the.
I stream my TV, so I don't get I don't really watch
Oh, you mean like a regular commercial? Yeah,
yeah.
no,
So I don't really see a lot of regular commercials. Let's bring text up here.
regular
So I
commercials.
have no idea if they're still doing the Energizer Bunny commercials.
They rarely have any kind of product placement other than, and even like a lot of like food companies and stuff. They don't even have those anymore on regular TV. Like it's all insurance and yeah, weird.
Get your insurance the hell out of yourself. So how was Vegas, Breezy? How was your vacation, sir?
It was good. We're going to talk a little bit about it tomorrow on the speakeasy
Oh yeah?
because I did get to do a little haunt type of a thing.
A haunt
And
thing?
yeah, and I'm going to break it down because I got a lot to say on both sides of it.
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
like,
He gets on and off a plane, and I immediately start getting text messages about how the Earth is flat
hey, the
because the
pilot
pilot
told
wouldn't
people
answer
that.
his question.
I didn't.
No,
I didn't get any. Why don't you got my number?
no,
And
I
I don't
asked
care if
him.
you talk about that. I'll talk
Yeah.
about it with you. Monica won't give you the time of day.
So we were at the terminal in Austin fixing to leave, and it's like one of those where you have to walk up the ladder to get to it. So I watched the pilot walk in, and I'm like, babe, I'm gonna go ask him. She's like, don't freaking embarrass me, dude. I'm like, yeah, I'm going. So I was like, all right, pardon me. I was like, do y'all fly to a curve? And he's like, no, dude, there's no curve. And I was like, you don't adjust for a curve when you're flying an airplane.
What do you mean
Nah,
just for a curve?
because you'd have to keep dipping down to keep going
No, you
around.
wouldn't.
Yeah, you would, or you just
You
fly
know how
straight off
far
into
above
space.
the atmosphere you are? You're way below the
30,000 feet. He knew
That's
what I was
above the
getting at.
atmosphere.
He knew what I was getting at. And he was like, no, dude.
I'm going to explain this to you, but the problem is, Breezy, for this to be true, okay. One, you have to believe in gravity, which you do not.
Right. This is
Okay.
true.
So this explanation is not going to mean a hill of beans to you. But if you believe in gravity, it does. So the amount of thrust that the plane has when it levels off, okay, say 32,000 feet, or
But you
30,000,
just said,
we'll just use that for argument's sake, okay?
but you just said level.
Oh, come on.
So
But no, we'll get
when
past
the
that.
plane reaches its cruising altitude of 30,000 feet, are you with me now?
Yeah.
You ain't having a stroke, are you?
No, I got the flu and all my muscles are all
So
locked up.
didn't you just get over that crap?
Dude, no, this time I got it like tenfold, like horrible.
Oh man, that sucks.
Dude, I haven't eaten since Sunday.
So if they're at a cruising altitude, they're maintaining the thrust that it takes to equate for the to equalize the gravity to keep them the same amount of distance off of the Earth. So they don't have to. So see, it just follows it. It doesn't. They would have to increase the power to increase the altitude, which they do. Okay. Now, if there wasn't any gravity, why would they have to increase the power to increase the altitude?
Well, I mean, because it's just like anything. If you're trying to get up a flight of stairs, you're gonna have to go upwards, and then you can level off when you're at the top of the stairs. You know what I mean?
Surface.
Because it's a level plane. But on the same fact, on a flat Earth map, that plane would kind of have to keep hanging left instead of going down to go around a curve. It kind of have to keep hanging left. So I'll,
Here
me,
on the flat Earth, we just keep taking lefts.
yeah, we just keep going. 3 lefts don't make a right.
Okay, the secret's out. We've busted this whole thing wide open. The Earth is a NASCAR track.
No, the world isn't flat or round. It's a vampire. Come to drain.
Sent to
It's a
drain because
NASCAR
I feel
Yep.
drained. A secret destroyer. Is that what it is? Hold you up to the flame. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, yeah.
Okay.
But I had a good time. But I got back and got sick as a dog. So
Well, I'm guessing you brought it back with you and it hit you when you got back. So thanks for bringing it back to Texas, brother.
That's what I do. That's what I do.
Yeah.
That's what planes
I'm
are
glad
for.
I'm glad we can count on you for that.
Yeah, yeah. I got cut off on the plane too.
Oh, dude.
And I was like, I don't
no
think
more alcohol for you, sir.
I was like, yeah, but no, I wasn't acting a fool. She was like, that's a lot of alcohol. I was like, dude, you don't know me. Like, that's nothing. I was like less than I'd have right here.
My blood alcohol type, or my alcohol type, is Jose Cuervo.
Yep, yeah, exactly.
That's my alcohol type, my blood type. I can't talk. All right. So tonight, Breezy, you missed it last week. We had Kevin on last week.
Amazing dude, by the way. Amazing dude.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome. He's had an incredible life. He's got some pretty cool stories. You'll have to go back and check it out when you're feeling better. But tonight, Kevin's going to be talking about his experiences with the Fae, his mother's experience with the Fae, which was actually pretty interesting, I think. And then he's got some experiences with vampires that he hasn't told me about. And I
need to share this out while I'm thinking about it.
Check what out?
I need to share this show out that we were on.
Yeah. So here we go. We're going to bring Kevin up. And ta-da!
Hey guys.
There's Kevin.
Thanks for having me back. Greetings, everyone.
Thanks for coming back on.
In the audience. Yeah, that was a little misleading what I said about the vampires. That came in the form of the prescient dreams, but the stuff with the Fae that's as I like to say, leave it to my mom to upstage me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where you want to jump in, or where you
can jump in wherever you want.
Well, let me start right there. I guess my mom was a very strict Catholic, raised in an orphanage by Irish nuns. And from the time she was 6 until when they had to leave legally at 17. And I don't know how much you know about the Irish Catholic culture. As quiet as kept, it was England's first colony. And to say those people were repressed would be an understatement. But they had to learn English at gunpoint, their own language. Their culture was, English tried to strip it away from them to break their spirit so they would be less rebellious. That didn't work. And the reason I'm mentioning this, they were one of the Irish, the Celtic people in general, and we're talking Irish, Scots, and Welsh in the British area. The continental Celts, of course, are Gaelic. But the Irish, they were pagans. They hung horses of their enemies from the saddlebows of their horses.
Wow.
For the Celtic people were really, like so many of those times, savage. And when they became Christianized, Catholicized, as it were, a lot of those pagan beliefs were still, deeply in the culture, to the point that when my mother's people came over, there was still a lot of that, that my mother, that was talked about even with the nuns, stuff that was shushed, but, it didn't have to dig far to get beneath the veneer, and to get to some of that lore. But to me, as a single kid, an only child, rather, my mother's, my dad and mom split up when I was just a baby, and my mom, had to raise me. A single mom was even harder, I think, in those days. But she was very strict, a strict Catholic. When she finally revealed to me her experience, I was just astonished, because if you knew my mom, you knew she never missed Mass. She was always exactly 5 minutes late to Mass.
Yep.
but she was very, very devout, and I know that it carried her through, what was a difficult life, by anyone's estimation. My dad wasn't exactly Mr. Right, and my mom has some, as any single mom does, some enviable challenges, but her faith, as is with so many of us, faith kept her really strong. So I was just pretty much fell out of my chair when one day I was visiting her. She'd had some serious surgery, and I could tell in the tone of her voice that she wanted to tell me something. And my mother, our relationship, to put this in a perspective that would be helpful, I think. We weren't exactly, didn't have the relationship that I would have preferred. She was a great mom when I was little. We grew distant as I became a young man. I was working for a living at 14 to help out. And we were mom was challenged. But how do I put this? Let's pick up at the hospital. I go down to the hospital to see her, and she's sitting up in bed, and I don't know, there was just something different about it. I knew something was imminent. I was afraid it was going to be something serious, something I discovered by virtue of the surgery. And the minute I got there, she dispelled those fears by, just candidly talking to me. And as she leaned into this story, she said, for once, I don't want you to talk. Don't interrupt. I love you, son, but you're nothing if not given hyperbole. And I'm kind of glancing around the room. There was a lot of medicine vials present in her room. And she proceeded to launch into this story. She was coming back from lunch, and she worked for attorneys, Stewart & Stewart, father and son company in Washington, D.C., in the business district, down on K Street in Connecticut, right around there. And she had been there for a long time. The elder treated everyone, liked him. He treated everyone well. And my mom, in this particular day, had to meet someone. I had to take a bus to go meet this friend of hers for lunch. And on their way back, she stepped off the bus and stepped down into what would be a 14th, 15th century Irish village. And when my mother said that to me, a host of, visions came to my mind. And as I started to scan the room again, she said, "There's nothing wrong. I've been taking there's nothing with the medication. There's nothing wrong with me. I just want you to listen." And her voice was so steady, and her tone was so, it was grave, but it relaxed at the same time. So I wanted to ask her, how could you possibly, guess the time frame? But my mom, like myself, was something of a history nerd. She was more of the political stuff that was going on in Ireland, but she did a lot of research, and whenever she could afford to, she saved all her money and take that one trip a year that so many people take, and she would go to Ireland. And I had a lot of occasion to wonder where exactly she went. So she steps into this mist enshrouded village, and a little tiny woman, about 4 feet tall, walks up to my mother and starts gesticulating as if she was giving her some kind of blessing and speaking in Gaelic at a rapid pace. Now, my mother had not spoken when she was put in the orphanage. They had to speak English, and I'm sure some of the nuns still spoke the old language, but it was not, encouraged. And my mother consequently didn't know a lot of the words and couldn't really follow what this woman was trying to tell her. But this woman took my mother by the hand, and my mother said she was very strong. That was the thing that got my attention right away. It was that there was a feeling of, I want to say power, but that's not the word she used. So she's taking my mother through this village and jabbering a mile a minute in Gaelic. And it was very thick. The mist was very thick, my mother said, thatched roof huts, I mean, really primitive. You would think of it as an Irish peasants, I would imagine it would be the imagery would conjure up. And my mom said, "I'm sorry, son, I could not make out what she was trying to tell me, but it was clear that she was trying to impart something to me." And after what seemed to be about 10, 12 minutes or so, she took me back to this exact spot it was in when this had began. And when I asked her how she knew that, she said, "But there was a stone or some curious stone that was right there that she noticed when she stepped off the bus." Anyway, she's back at the spot, and the woman, this little tiny aged woman, gave her this kind of blessing, and then everything disappeared. And my mother's staring at concrete buildings and hearing the rush of traffic a whole bit, just like that. And then she hears the sound of the bus pulling off. And what she thought was like 10 minutes was like 10 seconds. And I wish if you knew me or my mother better. I mean, I know how this probably sounds, especially on the heels of last week, but I'm not exaggerating a syllable. And my only task really is to try to remember as accurate as I can, because it was a pretty incredible story. As I used to say over the years, leave it to my mom to upstage me. And I asked her, I said, "Mom, why didn't you tell me with all the years, being a nerd, studying?" I mean, my mom would chastise me constantly about studying, books of demonology and stuff in the Silver Spring Library when I was a kid. We're pulling out books of Golden Order of the Dawn and Mathers and all the Crowleys, Aleister Crowley, whose birthday is the same as mine, a dubious distinction at best with circles. But and I said, "Mom, with all that and my searching and connecting with Master Wong, who was like a father to me for years, and the studies of so many things Eastern, outside the Eurocentric Christian paradigm." And before I could go any further, she said, "Because I wanted you to be a good Irish Catholic boy and not chase after this woo-woo stuff." And I just said, "How could you call it woo?" I mean, after experiencing some of it and then telling me, and she just got very impatient and very irritated and flustered and turned about 3 shades of red. And that conversation ended, because my mom said the conversation was over. She meant that. And it stuck with me through the years. And these prescient dreams I've had, and it's funny, right? Not long, I'm trying to remember how many years it was after that. About 5 years after my mother passed. And one of the prescient dreams that I shared last week, one of them was not of my mother. And I remember when she passed over, I saw her, and it wasn't the kind of dynamic where you look at it. I was looking at her. She was looking at me. I was looking at her profile. She's talking to me on the phone, and I'm looking straight at her. And she's in an old, looked like an old European village or something like that. But at the time, a dream, I didn't think about it. And I'm only thinking about it now as I'm relating the story. Anyway, just told me not to worry. Everything's okay. And that was the dream I had about her. But I don't know how if that's interesting to you. I remember, Monica, we did the story of the Fae, with the Welsh Fae. At some point, it made me think about that story of my mom's, because when I brought it up not long before she passed away, she just looked at me real seriously, and she said, "Well, Kevin, that's blasphemy. When you talk about it," because I wasn't implying she was lying. I just wanted to hear her retell it. It was so fantastic to me. I mean, as I said last week, I've watched my girlfriend's face molecularly rearrange itself night after night, and look not only like other people, but look like people that were so beautiful that even look human. So I've seen some stuff, and she just looked at me. I think she was a little insulted that but I just wanted her to retell it. But she said, "No, that happened. And it happened just the way I said it did."
Did she ever talk to you about the Fae when you were growing up, being an Irish?
Never. No. I mean, she would encourage talks. I mean, she knew I was a nerd about history, ancient history, and she encouraged for me to learn everything I could about her Irish background, because we didn't have much. The two of us didn't have any family. My dad was raised in the res. He was what people would call a half-breed, And we never had anything. She moved so many times and tried to keep the change of address, vacant so he could never find us. So it was just the two of us. But she was really, and I could make some obvious, assumptions in terms of a psychiatric, psychological. She was really leaning into that because she didn't have much to lean on. When I came back from California, she was so the experience at the orphanage resonated so powerfully with her that she made me take a train trip up with her and made me stand in the exact spot she was standing in when the nuns told her mother was dead. She was like 6.5. So but she never brought that up. But my mother was really eerily tuned in, and like so many of us, when you're close to someone, the phone rings and you know it's them. We've all had stuff like that. But I'll tell you an interesting thing that relates to the medium that I was sharing with last week. When my mom came out to see who her little boy was shacked up with, my first official living girlfriend, and I was a slow starter with girls. I lost my virginity late compared to most guys. And I'm 21 and live with Meredith, and I'd already seen so many. I had been watching her in trance night after night for at least a month before my mom came, barreling out to see who her little boy was with. And we went out to dinner. In the middle of dinner, out of nowhere, Meredith said, that was not a professional name, by the way. I think you asked me, what her name was professionally, but I'll get that in a minute. And in the middle of dinner, Meredith looked at my mother and said, Rita, why didn't you ever tell Kevin about his Native American heritage? Now, for years, my mother told me I was Italian. She said, you're Irish and you're Italian. That's why you can get tan, because most people of pure Celtic blood, as you probably know, can't really tan. They're either white or red. And that was the case with my mother. She had to carry a parasol to go to lunch. But I got dark, and I got really dark really fast. But I'm Italian. Okay. Well, ironic that someone is fascinated with studying history and categories of people and their backgrounds would know so little about his own. But my mother said something that was gospel to me, up to a point. And up to the point of our relationship, I should say. So I looked at my mom like the R.C. Victor dog, and looked over at Meredith, and my mom got red as tomato and said, I don't think it's any of your business, Meredith. And Meredith said, well, you're right, but it certainly is his. So I drove my mom to the airport and just badgered her, relentlessly. She wouldn't talk about it. And she never would talk about it until about 20 years later when I was diagnosed with the first of 2 cancers I've had. And then she lay down on the sofa in my room and talked in a monotone voice like someone under hypnosis and unraveled a tale that was like something out of a Dickens novel. And it had to do with my father, And I explained it because I noticed that when I got tan, I never got olive. I was always a deep, deep copper brown. And so much for appearances. Anyway,
I see the native like in you. When I look at you, I can see it so clearly.
Well, I think some people see what they want to see. I just wanted to know who I was, so many my friends, I felt like they take their own background for granted. But when I started to visit the reservations, I noticed that there was a lot of light-eyed, light-haired people, of mixed blood. And as things politically change and, racially, I lived to see a lot of things. I'm 70 now, and thank God I lived to see the changes that I have when it comes to people of color. Nothing is more important to me in this world than race, because you cure so many problems with racial hatred taken away. Homelessness, the hunger, all the different prejudice and gradations of tone, color, and the infighting, and all these. So it's ironic when I went to the res to see how many Irish were there as well. And it made perfect sense because when the Irish came here, they were so ostracized that when they did marry outside their own culture, they married the only other cultures that were there in any numbers, which was African Americans and Native Americans, because everyone else was, as far as the Irish are concerned, way beneath them. And, that hatred is still built in. I was gigging in Europe as recently as the 90s. I was in 95, I was in London on a gig. And I went to a pub, and I had enough time in between dates that I felt like I could let my hair down, And I don't really drink a lot usually, but I just wanted to blow out some carbon. So I was sitting there, and the bar was owned by a guy from London, and I just could tell that he was from deep pockets. And his fate or karma would have it, his brother, who was a musician by hobby, was also here, sequestered to my left at the end of the bar. And this big barrister guy came up to me and said, "Oh, we go, Yankee. What's your name?" I said, my name's Kevin. Kevin what? I said, Murphy. He goes, "Oh, we got an Irishman here." And I said, "Well, I'm Irish American." And before I could say anything, he goes, "We call you people that use the N-word of Europe." I about fell off my chair. I said, "What did you say?" And this is a big guy, but when you get mad, you don't care. And I said, "What did you just say, man?" And he said it again, and man, we were rolling tumbling like a couple of alley cats. Fortunately for me, he was pretty drunk. He was a big guy, but he was drunk. And then it took about 5 or 6 guys to get us apart. And apparently he was a bully, so they threw him out. And the guy said, "I'm so tired of this guy. He thinks he got money. He can do whatever he wants, insult my patron." He said, "But you got a temper on you." And then he pulls me down to where his brother was, and then we ended up becoming good friends. He was having trouble getting CDs for some reason. Amazon was not on their job, but this guy had a place in Antigua. Make a long story not too much longer, we exchanged addresses and numbers, and I mailed him 5 CDs. He tried to give me money for it, which, you're on holiday. And no, don't worry about it. I'm good. And 2 weeks after I sent the CDs, I got 2 round-trip tickets for my girl and I to go to Antigua. And he put us up at this place. He had a bookstore called The First Edition, which may or may not still be there. But so there you go, from being called the N-word of Europe. And but my mother was telling me quite a bit. And when I was on the res, it was amazing how many people had Irish names there. That I was in there trying to research my family, because my mother, to protect me, gave me virtually no information. I only had one picture of my dad the whole time. But, you talk about the Fae. I knew my mother's had to have been, and this didn't occur to me until I started talking about this recently with you. I know my mom had to have been some places where the Druids were strong, because that wasn't the only time she had experience like that, but she wouldn't tell me about the other one. I could never get it out of her before she passed. My mom had Alzheimer's, and she had it for a while before we knew it. She wrecked 4 cars before they took her license away from her. But she had another experience, but I think she was so shaken from it because, the Catholic faith, especially in those days, was practiced. I mean, we didn't even eat meat on Fridays, and having sex outside of marriage was a mortal sin. And, there was a lot of backward stuff going on. I don't want to offend any of your listeners. I hope I'm not. I wouldn't offend anyone for the world, man. I've got a mean bone in my body, but it was primitive, and I could sense that at 14, when I was becoming a young guy out there working and stuff. But, and if my mother had more than that, she kept it to herself. I know she had one other experience. I'm sorry that, thanks for nothing. I wanted to bring it up, but my mom was definitely touched, and I think that when I started explaining the Prescient dreams, especially when they related to people that she knew, that she started to pull up a chair. I don't know what she thought at first, but as I said, she just wanted me to pursue a more, legitimate,
I think that she probably had the same ability that you had in being raised in the orphanage that she was raised in.
Yeah.
It would be suppressed. They wouldn't encourage that. They would suppress that.
Well, this rosary here was the godmother, my sister Mary Assumption, to get my mother safe and relatively sane in that place. That's hers, and that's what I was able to inherit from all that.
That's great.
Awesome.
But my mother was she when I shared some of the dreams that I shared with you, and I believe me, they're just the tip of that iceberg. I don't know how valuable this is to do, but there was one that she was real good friends with a guy that lived in my building, an elderly African-American guy. He was actually the first African-American hired by Sears and Roebuck. And she became very close to him. And I think the reason is he was almost as close to her in age as he was to me. And he was like a mentor, is the way to put it. He passed away, and it just devastated me. But we used to have a lot of long existential talks, like the kind of talks that you guys undoubtedly have with each other and yourselves. The warp and woof of things, the where and why. And I used to talk to him candidly about Meredith and my experience in meditation. And he always used, this guy was the most intrinsically spiritual person you'd ever want to meet, guys. But he said, I just can't sanction, I cannot understand any kind of creative power that would allow this chaos and cruelty. The same thing that all of us wonder, And he was so deeply intellectual too that we go round and round, and we agreed on one thing, that love was really all that matters, in this world, really. Well, not all that matters, but certainly, the most important from the existential perspective. And he used to say to me constantly, I can't find a church that works for me.
Yeah.
And when he passed away, I dreamed that I was back at the club. I had the longest tenure at. I had a residence place for about 8 years. And in my dream, I'm back there and I can't find half the guys who were about to go back for the next set. And the phone rings in my pocket. I got a sport coat on, which I didn't always wear for gigs, but I look at it, but the pocket is sewed up, so I can't get to it. And at the same time, I'm going through that head trip, like, what's that message? What's that supposed to? I see him come up from the kitchen dressed to the nines. And when Bill came out, especially here his play, he'd always dressed up, And he's holding a plate of soul food, and the restaurant we had, we specialize in soul food. And he's looking at me, and he says in his very grave voice, Kevin, I finally found a church that works for me. And I woke up and had goosebumps everywhere, just like.
Right.
So that was one of the many prescient dreams, I think you would call them. Meredith, I lost touch with to help some of your viewers just tuning in. She was part of a metaphysical group called the Church of Mind Science. It was headed by a guy named Damian Simpson. And Meredith was a medium from a long line of mediums, a gift handed down from mother to daughter going back generations in France. Her own mother, like my mother, was a strict Catholic, and the gift, so to speak, terrified her. But Meredith was a hippie, and just threw herself head first into that existential breach. And the phenomena, and I remember her counseling me many times, don't get caught up in phenomena. I'm doing this because after you shared that dream with me, I knew that that was a sign that, and I think she knew that she was going to help mentor me. And through her, I discovered the meditation techniques that I practice to this day, 50 years later. But, I had done hallucinogens liberally, LSD 25, orange sunshine, not for an extensive period of time, for like about a year, on weekends, when I wasn't playing football or doing whatever with the fellows. But it was the phenomena, the visual and the auditory things that I experienced under that heightened state were pale in comparison to what I experienced with Meredith. The molecular rearrangement of the room from the manifestation of nature spirits, which someone asked about last week, I think, right in front of me, to her own face molecularly rearranging itself when she went in trance. And every night that she did this, she would do this really long prayer, long invocation. And then the room first, you could almost hear the silence. Everything would be turned off, the lights would be turned off in the room, but a towel would be put over one lamp. So you could see, but not too well, But the first visual phenomena that I would notice would be the sensation of like heat waves. And that's the best way I can describe what it looked like visually in the room. And then colors would start flooding in. And if you want me to stop there, Monica, I don't know how much I should go over from last week and how much. I don't remember if we talked about the nature spirits or not. But usually when she went into trance, if any of the three of you have done hallucinogens, that sensation when things start to move around, when the flood. Well, I saw that, man. That Joe, she would start to do that. Well, the first thing would happen, it would look like a negative from a camera, like black. Her whole face and form would be covered in like a black with a yellow like outline around it.
Right.
That would dissipate, and her face would start to literally, molecularly move, and the features would be so defined when they resembled themselves that it was like you're looking through a ViewMaster or just going from portrait to that clear, that distinct. And there are always of females, and I have no idea why, and they were so beautiful, they didn't look human. And when I asked her, what the significance of that was, and she said, well, I'm completely out when this happens. I might as well be hit with thorns, and I'm completely unconscious with what I'm channeling. She said, what does your gut tell you? And I said, well, I think that you'd be tuning into other mediumistic people, but why would they all be women, and why would they all be that beautiful? She said, I have no idea.
Maybe that's just how they were showing themselves to you.
Yeah, I mean, and at the time, I wasn't really the idea of extraterrestrials and everything that's Sitchin and all the work that's been done in the last half century since I had this experience speaks for itself. If you guys are probably as tuned into this and more learned than I am, but we've come so far. And at the time that I was sharing some of these with people, I remember this is the perfect time to do it, and the perfect show to do it. Fellows, I'm at the risk of saying redundant. What I saw night after night after night after night, and it was, and I remember I would get up like a child and I'd say, "Can we do this again tonight?" And she'd look at me and say, "Sure, I told you." And I mean, we hardly ever left the house. And one of the times we did, I think I shared it last week, when I came back in, the place was so filled with ectoplasm, it looked like it was on fire. Smoke everywhere. I called the fire department, and then she yanks the phone away and says, this has been a big mistake. This is not a prank. We're sorry. And, I'm just looking incredulously at her. And when she hangs up and she starts laughing, I said, she has ectoplasm. She says, I'm amazed this hasn't happened sooner because we've been doing this every night in here. And she was a powerful medium. I mean, if you could see for 10 seconds what I saw every night. And this has been half a century since I saw her. I mean, I've had many things happen since then, and many prescient dreams that were phenomenal, but this, when I'm talking specifically, this happened, but it's burned into my soul. And I mean, in the best possible way. She was almost like a Madonna-like individual. And I was dating a girl at the time, and I was never a player, the opposite of a player, Jerry Lewis had the laugh track. Maybe I'm dating myself. I don't know how many of your listeners know who Jerry Lewis comedian was, but anyway, there was a gal that I was just crazy about, and the chemistry was just so profound, and I had to make a decision between the two of them, and I never developed that polished persona that so many guys do, where they just balance girls that they date simultaneously. Just that's not me. It never was. Just wanted to find one gal who I could connect with and be with her, But I had to make a decision, and I knew she was not only a Madonna. Not only did I recognize how intrinsically spiritual she was, and how much more advanced she was than I, which isn't saying much at the time. I may have been touched, so to speak, like so many people are, but I was not evolved. A big difference. So I was getting these gifts in the form of these dreams for a reason. And I remember she said, many are called, but few are chosen. And I just wanted to learn everything I could. I just had been, studying from a Kung Fu teacher, and some of the things I saw him do were miraculous enough, what he could do with just his energy, his chi. That's another conversation. But, like so many of us at that age, you're wide open like a sponge. And if you're fortunate to be around someone who's positive and has a lot to show you, teach you, it's an experience you never forget. And like I said, the visual phenomenon was just, the colors of light sweeping through the room. It was just, I've never experienced anything. And I've taken, like I said, some powerful hallucinogens, organic and chemical. And to be completely straight, I wasn't even drinking a beer or even smoking weed, at the time.
Oh, sure.
So
I want to talk a little bit about the dreams you were having about the vampires, because a lot of our listeners are very interested in various times.
It's a perfect time for this. And there's one of the podcasters, who's got he's drawn with such a wide palette. And to hear werewolves and vampires spoken of, we're living in an age where I think it's not going to live to say that the abuse of ritual magic, is just rampant, and super soldiers gone on someone. We live in an amazing time. At the time that I had this prescient dream of the vampires, I was afraid to tell anybody. This happened right before I came back to California, so we're talking 2012 that year. I mean, the climate existential that I was in at the time that I was living with Meredith. I mean, I'm in California, so it's not like living in Twist, Arkansas at that time, but still, some of my friends are trying to share with them what I'm sharing with you guys, who it was, people are like, really, and you weren't high and nothing, I mean, and I get that, but I'm not running for office, man. I got no agenda here than to share what happened. And like I said, I'm not exaggerating a syllable. So these dreams continue to happen, and all of them positive until it wasn't.
Right.
And when I always have these freaking things at like in the morning, it's always like between like 9 and 9:30. I don't know why that is.
At your hour.
I had a dream that I was looking at 2 rows of vampires dressed elegantly, like an Anne Rice thing. And I loved her first book, but she made them too elegant for me. But we'll get to that later. But they were like from a high school portrait, 2 rows of vampires, men and women, and they're staring at me with such malevolence and such awareness that I woke up like I always do with these dreams, with the hair standing up on my arms and neck, but I was quite shaken from this. But I was hesitant to share it with anybody, even maybe Mike, my best friend. I mean, imagine anyone that's on the fence about something that I've shared about the medium, and then you try and run this one by him. It's really. But what I really will never forget was the sense of awareness that was imparted to me. There was no words; it was all telepathic, and I was shaken. And I've been through a lot. It takes a lot to shake me these days. And I was just really recovering from that when I had another version of it. They appeared to me again, 2 rows, and a sense of evil.
Yeah. No, I mean, what do you feel that was?
I have no idea.
Brought on by, or what that? How that was significant?
I was in a dark time of my life. I was not meditating regularly. I had been through a lot. Chased out of the city I lived. I was selling weed to pay for my cancer treatment, and I went through living hell, man. I was betrayed by the very guy I gave thousands of dollars to when he was fired from his job, and I didn't have it like that, man. I grew up poor, and I don't mean to stay up, take a bow for being kind. I mean, that's not what we do. We do the right thing when no one's watching because it's who we are, hopefully. But the irony is evident, and I went through a lot. I had to reinvent myself at practically the age of 50, 1,000 miles from anywhere I knew, because a guy whose rent I'd paid for a couple of years said, "I got you." And I said, "Well, the feds are right behind me." He says, "Fuck them." Pardon my language. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all right. Don't worry. We say that word all the time here.
Good. Okay. I know the etiquette, man. I don't get out much these days. I'm not even gigging as much as I used to. But anyway, so I was in a very difficult time, and was homeless at one point. I was, when they brought me in for questioning, God, I don't know how much I should share legally, man. I'm sorry, I should have talked to you before.
You share whatever you're comfortable sharing. Like, I don't want you to.
I don't worry about my own ass. Anyway,
yeah, don't blow your witness protection. I mean, nothing like
that. Good one, Tex. No, man. I mean, I wasn't important, man. Either volume I was doing, but the guy that was supplying me was a big guy. And I'm afraid to say that name, but I'll tell you in private, Monica. And when I do, you go, "Oh, okay." Shit. So when the time I had this dream, I was living up in New York. My mother's best friend, beautiful black Irish woman who was like a tall version of Elizabeth Taylor, and she got my mom hooked up got us, the last bit attempt to try and get us on the same page, because we were not close in the last several years. My mom went slowly mad, and I was, going through what I was going through. So I moved up to upstate New York, and it was terrible at the time. I didn't know anyone there. I wasn't young, and my financial status was so miserable. I didn't even have a car. I managed to turn things around and get my band, get working again with, musically speaking, the last year I was there. But I was not in a good state. But it seems like it doesn't matter what kind of stage I'm in my life when these dreams happen. I mean, they've been far and away 99%. They've been the kind of things you wake up and you go, oh, thank you, that was a gift, but not this one. But I knew there's a certain feeling that I get. So I know that it's, like, how do you know it's, how do you separate a dream from one of those? Well, I can. They're just different. That's the only way I can describe it, And but this was, I've never felt such evil. Never. I mean, I've been in some rough places, with rough, cartel, those kind of people. This, sociopath, pathologically, motherfucking but this was something as corny as it sounds, a threat to my spirit,
Well, there's a difference between just the, the feeling of when you're around dangerous people, and then when you're around something that's truly evil and supernatural, for lack of a better word. Those are completely different feelings.
Well, I think we all know what it's like to know your life's in peril. Everyone's walked into a situation or had a situation hatched on it where all of a sudden it's your ass and you better be ready. It's going down and it's lethal. And I swam in some deep waters, and I was never a threat to anybody. I'm the musician that was just doing this to pay his radiation treatment. I wasn't really, trying to conquer the world selling weed, So, but I've been around some pretty dangerous characters. I never felt anything remotely like this, ever.
Yeah.
Not even a close second. And, when you're being followed by, some of the people that work for our government, they can be pretty creepy.
Yeah, I bet.
Pretty terrifying.
Getting followed by anybody.
Phones tapped, house bugged. I mean, for years, not weeks, fellows, or months, but for years at a time. I just try to imagine the tongue lashing I'm going to get from my attorney. He said, "Did you really say this?"
Well, you can stop talking about it. You know what we can do? We can shift gears over to.
Oh, that's on me. I did this. You didn't leave me down this path.
Pretty cool friend that you have. Let's talk about your friend who was in the Underworld movies, because I think that everybody would think that it was pretty cool that you have a friend.
Well,
you've got some really interesting friends. Let me just put it that way. I know that you know a lot of very interesting people.
Agree. Well, if you're out in the public eye like that, if you play in a band that's visible, regardless of how you would judge how good or not good, if you're just out there, I think you the chance of being people that go up way up, and I think if people sense your commitment, your devotion to something, then that goes up even more. That you get quality of people, a type of person that
sure.
The dynamic is enhanced by virtue of that.
You get what you put out, right?
Yeah, this guy was working security across the street, and he was a large guy, and he had a voice that he could recite the phone book and get people excited. And he came into the club, and I remember that's basically how I became aware of him. But the irony is that the Underworld series, the initial contact was a metaphor for interracial dating, and with
was a vampire movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would have believed if I hadn't heard it directly from him. Anyway, but I remember when I sent him some extras, and I started writing when I left DC in the Holocaust. As you can imagine, I was in an expressive mood. And I started to write, and all the voracious reading I'd done of metaphysical, mythological, historical things started to pour on the page in different guises. And I sent him some things. He said, "Send me 3 things that you're most confident of." And when I did, he said, he was very encouraging. He said, asked him to come out there. I can't really say what he said. It sounds too self-aggrandizing, but so he encouraged me to come out. And when I got here, he wanted me to he hooked me up with to get photos done. I said, no, I'm too old to be an actor, man. I said, I got my hands full with the writing thing, man. He said, I think he'd be a natural. But so he's a really good guy. And the series was hatched. The way he broke it down for me is that he was an extra on the movie Stargate. And the director for the Underworld movies was a graphic artist. And I don't think he had directed anything of note at the time. He was just working on the film like my friend Kevin was. And they shared a pizza and mutual stories. And he started to sketch the creatures that Kevin was, as Kevin unraveled the plot, the basic, layout of the whole world, this universe. He started sketching. And when they were going down the hallway of Lakeshore Productions, from what I remember Kevin saying, it was that Kate Beckinsale was coming towards them and saw the sketchbook. He said, what's that? Who are you guys? And I don't know how, to be honest, I was in the impression, remembering that she helped lead the meeting, but it might not happen right away. But she definitely helped close the deal and ended up starring in the films, of which I think they've had 4 sequels. I think the first 2 are really good. The third one was not bad either because Kevin was really featured in that. It was cool to see him do that. Get more camera time. So that's the most I can share about that. He's encouraged me. He's admonished me a couple times to not having to get my act more together and having that treatment's done and stuff like that. But I'm busy living, man. Trying to do the best I can here. But I write supernatural historical fiction, and I've written articles about chess players. I used to play chess in tournaments when I was younger, and I've written articles about boxers for Boxing E-Zine. They say write what you know, and I don't think it's bad advice. So that helped me get on the playing field, get at least established and published, and get paid a little bit. And I have I was offered to sell a story to Tony Eldridge, who's one of the producers of the Denzel Washington Equalizer movies. And he's a really nice guy. And I love those films. I like Denzel Washington. I mean, who doesn't like Denzel? I mean, he's just an incredible actor, and he's got such, vibe about him. Everything he does elevates it. I thought he was brilliant in Malcolm X, everything he's done. And so he offered, I sent him an excerpt, the one I sent you, Monica, which is kind of backdrop to my own take on the Robert John mythos, the bluesmen, souls of soul, the devil at the crossroads. But in it, I invoke a lot of Haitian and African history and lore to try and give people a background, because voodoo of itself was really kind of it's not about spells and zombies and
no, it's not.
That's something called Palamayambi. There's other names for it too, but voodoo, their basic religion, just means of the spirit in the language of the people, the Fon, and that is just a merging of Catholicism and African.
It is
nothing evil about it.
I think a lot of people don't realize that it's heavily influenced by Catholicism.
Well, they realized right away when they were being converted that the Catholics had as many saints as they did, and by they I mean that there's a cosmology, a collective metaphysic hierarchy that was pervasive as it was consistent from the coast of West Africa to the Congo. And the names were different, but the basic, it was an animism kind of driven thing where you have spirits of the ocean and all the different elements, and very intricate and meticulously intricate hierarchy. And so they just created this, as you guys probably know, because they just transplant, like St. Peter became Legba, and every saint of a Catholic origin had a corresponding African name. And this thing was created, the beautiful religion at the core of it, which is based on love and healing, But as you no doubt have discovered, every major religion has a dark side. There are people who, when unhappy or oppressed, will go, and they call it the Black Mass in Catholic, when the medieval ages, when the plague was sweeping, people were giving up their belief in God and Virgin Mary, and So when we turn to, so every So that is the dark side. And I hate to even use that word, but everything is about color. But I learned a lot. And it was right around that time that I was starting to really hatch the story that I had that experience with the cryptid, you know. And but before that happened, I forgot to tell you, in my room one night when I was studying, I had just watched Maya Deren. Now, Maya Deren was a cinematographer who went to Haiti with the idea of doing a documentary about dance, and was so moved by what she saw, the miracles she saw, that she became a devotee. And any first edition copies of her book are very valuable. And excuse me. Can you see a second?
Yep. How you doing there, Joe?
I'm all right. I'm hanging in there.
Checking in on you.
Sorry about that.
My whole body hurts. Feel like
We're
I've been in a car
We're gonna
wreck.
cut it off here in just a few minutes.
So I was studying. I was watching this incredible documentary, which you guys got to see. I have a copy over here. I'll bring it over here in a minute. And I watched a picture that was leaning like that kind of, not like it, but at an angle. I had it, you know, literally go forward and fall off the shelf right in front of me. And I wasn't hiding anything. And that kind of stuff, you know, didn't happen in my life with any frequency. The things I've shared with you guys did. Like I said, I've never exaggerated a syllable. I just try to remember everything, you know. And it's funny how things come back to you. Barton asked me to ask you about, to mention the nature spirits. I don't know if I covered that last week. I don't think I did, or not very much. But one of the things that happened when she went in trance, guys, is that I never saw a portal open up. Like I never saw a tube or a tunnel when I had the couple astral projections I shared last week. That didn't happen for me like it does to other people.
Not everybody does.
But
some people would just boom out of their body.
When her always, she would do this very long invocation prayer, and it was really a prayer. I mean, invocation summons up so many different, you know, images. She would just start off, Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Jesus Christ, saints of all religions, we're gathered here in the hope that you'll manifest your presence, and really get into it. And it would, the feeling of conviction was so strong. The sense of peace that would pervade the room was just unmistakable. And that's why I never felt vaguely unsettled by anything I saw. And which is what I'm leading to. She would go from this negative effect where her just black with yellow around it. When what she described as nature spirits would manifest, that would dissipate, and right in front of her, there wouldn't be like a portal or anything open up, but right in front of her, these images would collect and form, and they looked like gargoyles and werewolves. And I never heard of dogmen at the time. You know, I had no idea. But as they looked horrific, if I was a talented, gifted artist, I wish I could draw what I saw. I mean, just unbelievable, incredible. But I never felt vaguely disquieted because the vibe in the room was so peaceful, guys. And after about 10 minutes every night, I would fall asleep. And the first time it happened, I looked at her and I said, "How can I fall asleep?" And she just put her hand on my shoulder and said, "You're being healed." But there was a powerful healing vibe in the room, guys. I'm telling you. And this happened every night after night after night. We were there at that location for 3 months before we moved up to Long Beach. Her mom got sick, and I moved into the YMCA, which rented cheap rooms at the time, and she moved in with her mom. But anyway, given the nature spirits, these things were, it just as defined in appearance as her own face was, and why why her face would metamorph into females. I asked her about that, and I hope I'm not repeating myself. I'm getting old. But she said, "Well, what do you think it is, Kevin?" I said, "Well, I think that when you're in that vibe, you're in that energy, you somehow immediately connect with other energies and this reciprocal wherever they are. But why would they all be women, and why would they all look like movies? Movie stars, and even they make Marilyn Monroe look plain. I'm not kidding, guys. It was stupefying. And she said, I don't know. I'm completely out when that happens. I'm not. I might as well be dead. And I had some friends of mine ask me, hey, did you ever try and go to the horse races, man? And win? No, I mean, I won't lie about wondering about it, but I never thought to try and capitalize on her gift. Well, I thought about it, but I had the guts to ask her. Anyway, the nature spirits, that happened pretty frequently, but I would say like maybe 10% of all the times. And when you watch something like that on a nightly basis for months, you know, it was really something. And she said, you know, you're not going to grow just observing phenomena. You have to work at it the way you do your guitar and your kung fu and your chess. And I said, well, how do I do that? I'm not exactly Mother Teresa. She said, well, you know, you learn how to meditate. And she said, you remember what your master used to talk about? I said, well, I was gifted, but I wasn't advanced. So we never learned Qigong or any of the higher. I did. You know, I had left them after only a year of formal practice, so I stayed in touch with them. And in fact, he came to visit me not long after. But anyway, so she said, but I want you to read this book. And when you do, I want you to send away for the lessons, because you can cultivate this energy, this power that you're witness, that you're part of, that we all are heir to by cosmic heritage. So we all have access to this. Is it, you know, and then she quoted Christ. Is it not written that you're gods and children of the Most High? And I said, well, that's kind of open for interpretation. She said, just read the book. So I read the book, and she said, for the amount of money you spend taking me to dinner, you can get the entire meditation course. And I'm happy to say that all these years later, these meditation techniques are still very, you know, it's a nonprofit organization, and I'm not pushing any agenda here, believe me. But it was kind of reassuring at a time when Scientology, you know, so many things were gaining ascendancy, and things that were, I mean, I'm having a hard time with, you know, in terms of,
Kevin,
you know, when I knew they weren't trying to get in my pants or my pocket, you know, so I went, okay. And the techniques, they work with the precision of mathematics. You know, that's that simple. I mean, not that.
Hey, Kevin,
but sorry.
I was just going to say, you touched on something that I'd like to do. I'd like to have you on sometime to talk, because I don't know how they would.
I'd be honored.
The whole religion thing is kind of the Scientology side of things. I mean, you kind of you've had experience with dealing with people that were involved in that. Am I not mistaken?
I went to a guy's house. In fact, I was beaten up really, really badly right before I left. I hitchhiked. I had experience. I met Muddy Waters. He was a hero of mine. It was like meeting a folk hero. And that week, the year 1776 was the anniversary, of course, of our country. And a lot of folk music heroes were being, you know, trotted through DC, and they were being featured at a venue called the Cellar Door.
Right.
And, you know, Muddy Waters, I mean, it was like meeting Paul Bunyan, you know, or John Henry or something. I mean, and I remember.
Hey, I know it's getting late.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
No, you're good.
You gotta read me in. I'm old, man. I'll just go ramble.
No, hey, it's all good. I know Breezy's sick. Monica's tired, but I would love to like, if we can, and I don't know if Monica's okay with that, have like a part 3, and I really want to drill into this.
Well, you better check with your cohorts there. I mean, anything I could do, you know, man, we live in the times we're in right now. I kind of feel like someone's opened Pandora's box.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Soldiers and black ops to all the ritual magic, and it's dog man. I mean, it's like I'm 70 and I've never seen a world like this, man. And I'm never around. So I feel like if there's anything I could do that's positive here that would help anyone in any way, to me, we're here to love each other, to contact the Creator the way we understand it, and cultivate that relationship, and try and spread that energy wherever we go. You know, I mean, it's hard to do unless you live in the monastery, because strength is just as important as that. We all
Yep.
know what happens to weak people in this culture. Who knows what wonders have been lost to the world for the lack of it.
Right.
But love is, we're here to love each other, man. And,
Yeah,
I need to
exactly.
get you over on Tex's show because his show goes on quite a while, like Monday. Is it Monday nights or Tuesday nights? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
it's Monday nights. Yeah.
I apologize, your audience. I'm an old hippie, so yeah,
No,
No,
it's
you good,
it's
bro.
about love, and it's
We're
also
all
been-
good.
But
I'm gonna get you hooked up with Tex. And
I would be a pleasure. I'm
That'd be
really
cool.
grateful you guys have me on. Thank you for letting me share some of my story. I've caught your guys' show a couple times. I'm very grateful that there is something like this. So many of the other shows I've seen are more cryptid oriented.
Yeah.
Should I mention other people? I don't know what's the etiquette is in this, but we had someone in the chat last week who has his own show.
Yeah.
Who's invited me on it. But you two, the only ones I know that I probably just will not getting out enough to know that. But most of the shows I've seen are cryptid oriented as opposed to more specifically existentially, paranormally.
you're talking about Bland?
Yeah, Jason Bland.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's
Yeah,
called.
he's a good dude. I was on his show too.
He seems
And
like a
in
great
fact,
guy.
he's coming on my show Monday.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, that'll be a good one. But yeah, Mickey had a good point, man. I ought to have him on a night out. I ought to have you on a night
Yeah,
out.
that'd be dope.
Yeah. Because he's West Coast time, so it wouldn't be too late for him.
I'm kind of a night owl, but I'm 3. I'm out here in the West. I came back out here, and Kevin from Underworld, he said, "You got to come out here and get one of your stories adapted." He
You
just
do.
kind of felt like the style that I write in would lend itself to screenplay adaptation more readily than other styles that he had. So
You need to get published so we can push your books.
Yeah, no doubt.
well, yeah, I've just got articles published right now, but I'm I couldn't agree more heartily that the.
So, like all the shows, why don't you let everybody know how they can get in touch with you if they have any questions or they want to talk to you some more about any particular subject?
Also, before I forget, if I could get contacts for you guys, if you're free to give them, so I could contact directly with both you.
Yep.
And Monica, I know I already have yours, but you two guys, I meant to get your contact before, but I hadn't met you yet, Joe. So yeah, and my own, you can reach me on Facebook, KC Murphy. You'll see a picture of a guy that looks a lot like me holding a guitar. Pretty easy to find. And my email is alleycatblues@hotmail. I have a website. It's funny. I've been playing music professionally for so many years, and I have nothing on YouTube. My friend Kevin, it's the 21st century. You want to see
Get on YouTube,
man? and I've got a good website. I could drop names of the best of them. I haven't had the career a lot of guys have, but I've been blessed. And but I have no presence on YouTube. And one of my agents I work with has said, I'm going to devote my entire life to getting you someone in the tech world and get you up to par because you're an anachronism, Murphy. Anyway, so there you have it. I'm an anachronism, but so that's the only way I know you can get a hold of me. And I plead guilty with an explanation. Should be on my T-shirt.
Well, I will share with you. Well, Joe's on Facebook. He's easy to find. Joe Breezy.
Cool.
The Breezy Easy or Joe Breezy.
I'll get you. I'll shoot you an email, Kevin.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I felt really that's great. I mean, I've been for 1,000 people, but I was kind of nervous, but you guys made it easy for me. Thank you for that.
Nobody should ever be nervous coming on my show at the very least.
Yeah, it's just a conversation.
Yeah.
Well,
Same with mine.
I'm reminded of a friend of my mother's, an old Irish raconteur who stepped up to the podium, and before he said it, he said, public speaking is not my forte. 2.5 hours later, and then O'Malley's cooking Murphy. He went down to that's not me. I'm not that guy. But I hope that if people were able to get something positive from it, if nothing else, that the creator is out there, and if I could venture to say anything, if I could presume to say anything, I would say that our mistakes aren't what's important. It's our indifference. I think that. So find something that works for you and stay loyal to it, because the way the world is right now, and we should all be on the same page in this cryptid community, especially the powers that be. You know, it's a Monica. I hope that's not you going too far, face.
No. I'm reading the
Stop
chat.
right there, okay? I'm done.
No, I mean,
your
and
Monica's gone too far, Faith.
Yeah, you'll know it.
no, but honestly,
know it when you
I
see it.
think with
Give her brother a rope. He thinks he's a cowboy. What can I say?
I think the message of the togetherness and bringing the community together and the positive energy and everything, being on the same page. I can't think of a better way to. I can't think of a better way to sign off tonight, honestly.
Yeah,
because I mean that's a good thought to leave everybody with.
I agree.
True that.
So, yeah, tonight I have no book recommendation because I haven't had time to put that together in my head.
I've got one.
Well, Tex is going to do a book recommendation, Daisy Darker.
I bought that. I bought it. And I thought of you. It popped up in my recommended list. My phone is listening to you gripe at me.
Exactly.
It popped up in my recommended list. And I went ahead and downloaded it. So it's going to be the next book in my lineup.
Yay.
And Kevin, you have a book recommendation?
Yeah, actually many. But on this topic, I would say if you haven't read Autobiography of a Yogi, you should get it. I mean, it's hard.
Autobiography of a Yogi. Say it slower.
Autobiography of a Yogi. He was one of the guys that taught Gandhi meditation techniques. But when I read it, as fate or karma would have it, as I like to say, when Meredith gave it to the medium, gave me the book with the advice that I shared earlier, I was really upset with astral projection, and I think I shared last week the experiences I had with that. But I was really, I mean, to me, that was, and I just opened it up. I happened to open it up, and I don't believe in coincidence any more than you do, to the page, the beginning of the chapter where Yogananda's guru appears to him in his hotel room after passing over. And these guys, when they pass over, they're not really instructed by mortality. They do what they call the Mahasamadhi. They sit, they stop their breath and heart, and bam, they're gone.
Right.
And, so the explanation of the astral, the details with it was just alone worth the price of the book. Would be worth the price of the book for anyone that's interested in the subject matter. I would think it's hard to keep in mind when you're reading it that it's a man's journey. It's not a book of fiction. I mean, it really. But people who've gone into you say, well, it's like nothing else. There's just
right.
Land of fable and myth and monsters and saints and I cannot speak from that authority. I've never been there, but I can recommend that book.
There you go.
And I want to apologize for the audience, so I didn't answer if they reached out.
No, there wasn't any tonight.
Okay.
It's everybody just chit-chatting among themselves. One person said, I love
my I'm old hat already,
Okay, well, that will do it for this week. So, Kevin, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you being on again.
Thank you very
sharing
much.
Your story. Like I said, you've had an amazing life, and you've got a lot of stories that are interesting for everybody to hear, and they're profound. They're great. And Breezy, I hope you feel better.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
It's the worst.
I'm on the downhill of it.
Tex, I'll see you in the hostage situation.
Okay.
We talk a minute like we did last time off camera?
Yeah, we'll do that. All right. So for all of us, y'all, we will check out next time. Thanks for tuning in, and